Hi, I'm Julia Wolf. This is my Honors Practicum final project. We're talking about ways that we can take things we learned in Honors Practicum and apply them to others classes at Drake University. I think that one of the best things we can do is to find contemporary things that students are interested in and apply them to other classes, like the Harry Potter article that we read about applied to ways that we learn from fiction. It was a fun subject that a lot of us enjoyed and read in our childhood, and I think that made the material more memorable. It hit home. It made us feel more like we were really learning something that we could use later on when we did it. Down the same line, applications for classes. So if you learn something, you want to be able to apply it to what you learned. And it doesn't necessarily need to be something really obvious. Like when we did the article about Hillary Clinton that she wrote, The Leading Through Civilian Power, one of the other students in the class compared it to the Honors Practicum, the way diplomacy works and how Honors Practicum works in a similar way. I thought that was pretty cool. And I think that that is easy to do for all the other classes that Drake does as well. We can take issues that seem like big issues far off from student life here at Drake, and we can bring them into something that really means something to students and makes them want to learn more about it. Down the same line, diversity here at Drake is pretty neat to see too. I came from a pretty small town where there wasn't a lot of diversity, and that includes diversity of ideas. I knew I was going to get more diversity of ideas just being in a different place other than where I grew up. But I didn't realize that even when people have the same conclusion to an issue, a lot of times they had a different way of coming to that conclusion. And I really liked hearing that when we were talking about stuff in practicum. I think that is also something that a lot of discussion-based classes, even the ones that aren't usually discussion-based, could implement a little bit more. Kevin Bain talked about that in his article. He had a quote that I found pretty interesting. He said, that students should think about their own thinking and ask themselves how ideas come up in their minds. That I found really interesting. I had to read it like 5 times to really comprehend what he was trying to say. We all can come to the same conclusion, but even when we do, we have a different way of doing it, and I really noticed that here at Drake. A lot of my friends are in different majors. They're more down the lines of math and computer science, whereas I'm in writing and political science. And the way they come up with their conclusions is very different than the way I come up with mine. And sometimes we have the same conclusion, and the way they thought it up is totally different than the way I thought up the answer to that problem. And I really do enjoy hearing how they do that. I think that is something that should be used more to the advantage in other classes. It makes it a more memorable process as well, just like the applications of the material does. And for discussion-based classes, I liked how towards the end of the year in practicum we really split into smaller groups more. This allowed us to get to know each other a little better and trust each other a little bit more. And when that happened, discussion flowed better, and then at the end of class we could get together in a big group and we felt more comfortable with each other, because every week different kids would get into small groups together. So you got to know everybody just a little bit better, and that really made discussion flow a lot better. So in discussion classes here at Drake, I think that smaller groups should be used as a different learning tool other than just big group discussions all the time. The last thing that I really liked about Honors Practicum is that it emphasized learning over memorizing facts. And I think that that should be reminded to students more often, that you should tell them that more often. If that gets told more often, I think that focus will be less on trying to memorize stuff and then forgetting it as soon as you don't need it for the test anymore. The article that stuck out to me about that was the success articles. It talked mostly about redefining success on personal success and business success, but I think this also applies to success in grades. If you are focused on learning, you're being successful at school more so than if you just get good grades. So I think that needs to be hit home more often with students. Ken Robinson also talked about that in his TED Talk when we watched his video for the first week of honors practicum. I know that was one that all the students said they really liked, and I did too. We talked about it quite a bit. It was neat to hear it from a perspective other than the typical teachers where they're like, oh, grades don't matter, but then they give you a grade anyway. So I like that as well. Well, that's my honors practicum final project. Thank you for listening.